Hi, everyone. Welcome to Los Angeles Performance Practices Research and Development, or R&D, as we refer to it lovingly, information session. We thank you for spending time with us today and learning about our program. We're going to get started. I know folks are going to trickle in, so that's okay. I know we'll welcome you when you arrive. So my name is Patricia Garza. I am the Director of Programs here at LAPP for one more day, and then we're going to be hiring a new Director of Programming very soon. So you all, if you know folks, we are looking for two co-leaders to run this organization and build it into the future. We're hiring a Director of Programming and Producing and a Director of Operations and Advancement. So please spread the word. I use they, them pronouns. And for those who are listening or maybe moving about or listening to this recording later, just for some visual support, I'll provide a visual description. I'm a brown-skinned Latina human. I have very big owl-like glasses, red covered hair right now that's covered by a head wrap, and I'm wearing a green shirt with the beige sweater. And I'm in front of a deep blue wall with lots of books. I'm a big book nerd. Before we begin, I want to do some quick access and logistic checks. So some access needs, the chat is enabled. Please use the chat. We love a good chat. We also have William on the team who's going to introduce himself in just a moment, who can answer questions in the chat. And also, if you need that closed captioning transcript, you can go ahead on that bottom ribbon of your Zoom and you can press captions. And you should be able to, I already enabled the English translation, but there's also multiple languages there. So you all can get that right there. And I do ask if everybody could be on silent while we begin, just because of access needs to hear folks in the space. We may toggle you to silent if we hear you. It's no offense. We're just trying to make sure everybody can hear everything, and then we'll be able to answer questions at the very end of the session. Okay, so William, do you want to say hello?
Yes, a quick hello. I'm going to be supporting Patricia today on the session. My name is William Ruiz Morales. I'm a programs associate at Los Angeles Performance Practice. I would work. I'm lucky to work with Patricia. And I'm so sad that they're leaving, but yeah, I think it's going to be like they're going to have like a great time in the future endeavors. And yeah, I'm also a brown Latinx a person with a long beard, like there's more salt and pepper now. And yeah, I'll be here supporting anything that you need. You feel free to drop questions on the chat, and I will be like collecting it and yeah, and passing it to Patricia. You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, William. So happy that William's with us. And I think I also saw Terrence McFarland, our interim GM here, who's going to be shepherding LAPP into the future as well. So thank you, Terrence, for being here. Again, chat's open. William's going to be looking at the chat. I will do my best to toggle, but we will have plenty of time for questions. So I always want to start, as we do, with the land acknowledgement here at LAPP. I want to ground us, and I want to just take a brief moment to acknowledge the Indigenous people who are the traditional stewards of this land. So I'm zooming in, looking out my window, from Tongva land, now known as East Los Angeles. And I just want to share a few bits of information as kind of an appetizer to this really wealth of history that we have here in Los Angeles. So just a couple little tidbits in case you didn't know. And this, I just want to give credit for. I went to La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. They have an amazing exhibit, or they did, called LA Starts Here. And so that's where I got a lot of this information. But I think folks know, but the original peoples of Los Angeles are the Tongva, defined their world or their community as Tavangar. So it actually extends from Palos Verdes to San Bernardino, all the way from Saddleback Mountains to the San Fernando Valley. So if you pass through different streets, you actually can see, the language and the community being recognized in some of the street names. And Tongva actually lived and known what is Los Angeles now 15,000 years before anyone else. So 2,500 square miles of the present day LA County was populated with 5,000 Tongva folks living anywhere from 50 to 100, 200 towns. And then when European colonial settlers came in, they actually had contact with over 300,000 indigenous folks that were here in Los Angeles. And I also want to acknowledge that the Tongva are still here. It's a rich history. It's a rich culture. There's amazing Tongva artists among this culture bearers. So just want to acknowledge that as we move through space. I do also want to give a resource, again, one of many resources, but if you want to learn a little bit more about your land, we can put in the chat, and maybe William, you can support me in this, the link to the native-land.ca. And it's just a resource for you all to get started, and acknowledge that if you want to dig in, I would really welcome you to learn more about your community. So just put that in the chat. I'm going to share a screen a lot of the time because I have slides, and then we also can get you these slides via email if that's helpful. But the recording also will have the slides as well. So I just want to share what is the plan for today. So we're going to start with obviously our welcome and land acknowledgement, which we just did. So check. Wonderful. Really want to make that prominent. I want to give a brief overview of LAPP. I see a lot of new folks in the room that I haven't interacted with. So I think a good quick LAPP overview of who we are as an organization will be helpful. I want to get into what is R+D, what is this program specifically. We also practice, part of our core values is practicing financial transparency. And so we're going to share with you the budget for R+D and how those funds are allocated. And I'll be able to answer any questions around that. We'll go over the timeline. We'll look at that interest form, very important. And then we'll talk a little bit about the review process and see how on the back end folks are going to be reviewing proposals, so you have an idea going and what folks are looking for. And then, of course, open Q&A. So just really high level, who we are as an organization. So Los Angeles Performance Practice is a nonprofit. We're devoted to the production and presentation of contemporary new work. And we're really love and get juiced by kind of multidisciplinary artistic practices. Our mission really is to serve a whole array, or we like to call it diverse constellation of artists and audiences through new work, groundbreaking performances, innovative work that really is in conversation with collaboration, technology, social engagement. And that's really rooted here in LA. And that's why this program is for Los Angeles County artists. But our artists have national and global reach as well. We tour artists, we are out in the community, we're out in the field. So we do this through platforms and partnerships and programs like this. We have active partnerships with lots of different curators, venues, nonprofits, different communities. And what we love to do is kind of pair all those together to really service the artists' dreams, the artists' hot topics that they're kind of discussing and grappling with that are really relevant to today. So we're going to talk about that when we look at our review criteria as well. So a little bit about, and I think maybe somebody's not on silent, I'm so sorry, but if you can silent yourself, I think it'd just be so helpful for everybody else to hear. I see a question in the chat. So the question is whether international artists are allowed to apply. This is for LA County artists. So as long as you have proof of residency in LA County, you are eligible. It is not for folks outside of LA County. So going into the program slide here, just a little bit about what, actually, before we do this, I always like to start with a little poll just to warm up the room, because some folks, get a little anxious coming into info sessions. So I like to just do a little poll. What is your comfort snack? What is your go-to comfort snack? We got to know who's in the room here. We got to know what the likes are. So is it, I need hydration, which look at my water bottle. It's like the size of a of a small dog. Chips and dip. Is it that salty combo? Fruit, it's fresh and nutritious. Or do you really need the sweets to get your day going? So we need to know before we get going, because this is important data for William and I to know who's in the room. And really also for you all to know who's in the room too, and see if there's any leanings. So let's just do this quick warm-up poll before we really dig in, because I always like to start with a little chuckle and get us going on who's in the space. So, all right. Whoa, we almost got it all in. Okay. Ooh, you're going to be surprised by these results. You're going to be surprised. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And if there's another one, you can put it in the chat. So you all, it looks like it's a tie between chips and dip and fresh fruit. So that's who's in the room, you all. We got some salty folks and we got some fresh folks. So it's very exciting. And then again, feel free to put it in the chat if I didn't name your favorite go-to snack. So that's great. Oh, good. Oh, we do. We have the lentil chips. I hear that. Those are delicious. The lentil chips from Trader Joe's, you all. All right, we had to talk about snack foods just a little bit before I jumped in, because we just want to see how folks are feeling tonight. Also, we would love for you to put, while I'm going on, I would love for folks to introduce themselves in the chat. So in the chat, if you're able, please share your name, your pronoun, and your artistic discipline. And I know it's complicated, you all. We understand. So your name, your pronoun, I'm going to put this in your in the chat. And we know that we contain multitudes, right? You also, if it's complicated, that's fine. But we needed to start with the snack, and then now we'll go a little deeper in your name, your pronoun, and your discipline. And as those populate, I'll go ahead and get going here. But it's always great to know who's in the space as well. So, oh, great. We have poetry, choreography, sound art, filmmakers. Amazing. Awesome. Love to see it. Love this. Great. All right. So back to the program. So this program actually was created in 2017 with a partnership with Automata Arts, which actually was one of our LAX Festival partners last year. And we actually have supported 23 projects since its inception. So that's very exciting for us. Early on in the residencies, it looked a lot different. We had a very modest stipend, about $400 to $800 per project, plus access to a space. We called it a residency because it was really tied to a space. Then, as we know, in 2020, all needs changed. So the need to be responsive to artists was evolving through the pandemic, and R+D pivoted to offer artists the opportunity to really co-design their experiences with LAPP, really based on emergent needs. So residencies, grew from maybe 2 weeks to 6 weeks, maybe with some skipping of days in between. We hosted in a range of partnering spaces, not just Automata. And then in 2021, when I came on board, we restructured the program even more. And we included a $1,600 stipend plus this notion of early project support. So additional support that really fit the artist's need. And sometimes that was access to a work or rehearsal space, but sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it looked like project documentation. Sometimes it looked like childcare reimbursement. Sometimes it looked like maybe project planning or consultation around fundraising with the LAPP team. So in 2021, we also were able to cover still like some work from home costs. So some folks, again, chose to work from home. Maybe they didn't want to be out in the community in a venue. So it started shifting. So finally, in 2022, we removed the word residency altogether and really anchored it as early project support. And this is really tailored to meet your all's individual needs. So by subtly removing that word residency, I hope this program can be defined a little bit more loosely and a little bit more open-endedly to serve and tailor to the needs of the artist, the individual artist. So sometimes that's physical space that you need, but sometimes it's a collaborator fee that you need. And we'll look at some samples of what this could look like. But just wanted to say that out loud, that we don't call it a residency anymore. Sometimes you may hear it like slip out in conversation and things, but it really is about early project support. We also last year in 2022, were able to offer a parent and guardian offering to 2 artists. So that was the first year we did that as an extension of our R+D main umbrella program. And that was a stipend, contribution towards childcare expenses, and a week of development. And we're so excited to continue to do that. So it's just thrilled that we're going into our 3rd cycle of R+D for parents and guardians. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and the differences between R+D and R+D for parents and guardians as well. They are slightly different. And these are all the amazing artists that we have worked with so far. So looking at what stays uniform across both of the R&D offerings first. So all R&D participants, so both R&D and R&D for parents and guardians, have the option to participate in what we call the Catalyst group. So the Catalyst group is, we got some feedback early on in R&D that artists were like, well, what's that artist doing? Or, oh, I saw their name in the website and my work aligns with them and I wish we can have a conversation. So functioning kind of as think of it as a cohort experience, the artists will be able to support each other through the process. They can exchange ideas, resources, and of course, it's the freedom to use it as much as you like. We have pre-published the dates and they are up here on the slide as well. And the reason for this is we found it's more successful if we kind of have the plans going in instead of trying to calendar around it. So we do ask folks that to book this time in their calendars if you are invited to participate. Of course, if you choose not to, that's fine, but we highly encourage this. We had all the artists participate both years and that we implemented this. And it's just a way to break isolation, hear from your fellow artists, and there's already some connections that we see in place. At our last event, our culmination will also invite other LAPP artists that are connected with our programming. And so it kind of turns into this really great artist mix and mingle. So highly, highly recommend the Catalyst group offering. But again, if those dates, for some reason, you're like, have this huge thing on this date and it just doesn't work for you, you can still submit. It's not like a hard and fast, you must be there. It's very highly encouraged. And we may also add dates as we go. Last year, folks wanted to meet more. So that's another option. So we already talked about this. So high level, again, Catalyst group is in both. So now we're going to look into specifically the general R&D offering before we get into the parent and guardian one. So each project for R&D, again, we already talked about this, has the Catalyst offering. It includes a $2,400 stipend for the artist, and all activities and support, like we talked about, will be co-designed with LAPP. So William and the new director of programming mainly. And how did we get, and for 2 weeks. So how did we get this $2,400 figure? Because last year was $1,600, now it's $2,400. So what we were aiming to do this year is really right size our R&D stipends. We always, LAPP across the board, and we'll look at this with our financial transparency and some of our samples, we always want to pay above minimum wage for artists and for artists' work. And so we had, I think last year, like a $25 an hour estimate. Now this year we're at $30 an hour. So we're estimating a 40-hour work week. So 2 weeks at 40 hours at $30 an hour. So that's how we got to this stipend figure, in case anybody's curious. It's not arbitrary. We're actually wanting to compensate folks for their time they're spending on the project. Some examples of what this additional support could look like, and again, we'll look at some samples as well. Funding for research, things like maybe knowledge building materials, books, literature, domestic travel. So this could be like a train ticket to go. Maybe you need to go to San Diego and go to a special library. Maybe you need a Zoom account because you're going to be doing a lot of interviews and you don't want to have that 40-minute thing pop up for the free Zoom or something like that. Maybe there's a remote learning class that you're like, oh, I really need this to get me deeper into my project. I will say airfare is not eligible. And so we hadn't been that explicit in the past, but to maximize the budget we do have, which again, we'll get into when we look at financial transparency, airfare is not an eligible expense. Domestic travel can be, so mileage, train tickets, things locally. Any additional support for collaborators, that could also be included. So say it's you as generative artists, you'll get the stipend, but you need an additional stipend for, let's just say, your choreographer. I'm just throwing out some samples. Maybe you do need a space. Maybe you do need a rental space for those 2 weeks, or maybe you need it for a portion of those 2 weeks. That can be included as your additional support. We do typically provide project documentation. So we typically ask if you want photography or video, and we can provide one of those, but say you need both of those, that would be something that you would put into your budget or your support ask is I really need both forms of documentation. So I need some additional support around that. Maybe you do want to meet with LAPP a little bit more hands-on and really get into like your project budget or your fundraising plan or something like that. So that's another additional support. So you will be meeting with LAPP staff. There'll be a kickoff call. We'll be checking in with you. Again, the time is really co-designed, but we really want to hear from you on the proposal of what you think would be best. Then we will also ask for you to have a report back with LAPP. So a chance to check in, a chance to how did it go? What are next steps? And then we'll also just give thoughts and ideas for future development. So that's R&D, big umbrella, and we'll be inviting 2 projects under this particular umbrella. Okay. So some key elements of differences for the parents and guardians offering. So again, R&D parents and guardians is the amount of time. So the amount of time and the stipend is truncated to, again, mirror that $30 an hour, 40-hour work week estimate. So this is a 1-week residency or time and space. And this would be ideal because we actually co-designed this parent and guardian residency in conversations with other artists that were parent and guardians. And they had actually given us the feedback that a 1-week period of time is actually ideal due to childcare, due to time, attention, needs. And so that's how we ended up designing this. But of course, we're always open to feedback. And, you know, if that's something that folks have a reaction to or have feedback on, we're always open. So again, $1,200 stipend. How did we get that number? $30 an hour for a 40-hour work week. It also comes with an $800 contribution towards childcare reimbursement. So offsetting that need for that week so you can focus and be present on your project. We will be inviting two artists or 2 projects for this particular offering. So again, for both offerings, all artists will construct their time on the way that serves their creativity and their caregiving needs if that's needed. So ideally, the time is consecutive, right? A 2-week window, a 1-week window. And the reason for that is if you need project space, if you need venue support, we typically can get deals if the time is consecutive. But if that doesn't serve your needs, please put that into the proposal because we are able to maybe take a day off here or maybe like come back to it later on. We're very flexible of what best serves your process, but I just will name if you do need physical space, it does become challenging if like you need every other day off because typically we get a better deal for our space if we can kind of truncate it into windows of time, but we're open to discussing. Also just want to name, and this was on the website, we're not going to get into specifics here. It will be part of the announcement, but new for this year, we actually have a 5th R&D slot, a project, and that's a curated R&D offering in preparation for our Live Arts Exchange Festival, or LAX Festival in 2025. So we're thinking ahead, and this particular project will also join the 4 other projects in our Catalyst group. So I just want to name that when you look at the budget, which we're going to look at in a moment, together, you will see there's 5 R&D artists. 1 is already pre-curated. So I'll go ahead and take a pause, and I do not want to share it yet because we're going to share that with the announcement with everybody else. Okay. Oh, my slides are said 2023. Y'all, you know, I just copied these. So, you know, we're in 2024, right? So it's the 2024 R&D program. Sorry, you all. So when these slides, and I will fix them before we send them out. So my bad, I did not catch that. 2024, we're in 2024. This is the 2024 program. And I actually updated all the content. So just looking at some questions, see some wonderful check-ins here. Yes, 2024, you all, we're in 2024. 2023 is gone. I apologize for the mistake on the slides. We are in 2024. 5-day work week, 5 days, Joe. So they're asking if we considered a week 5 days, we're actually considering it 40 hours. So however you want to divvy up those 40 hours, that's what we're saying is a work week. If that's clear. All right, I'm just checking in. When we say pre-curated, do you mean the person has already been invited? Yes. We already are in conversation with that particular project. Yes. So August 1st and October 25th. Yes, you all, 2024. Everything's, I'm so sorry. I know that's confusing. I will change that. All the information I have presented is correct. Just the little year. So I will change that, you all. We're in 2024. Some questions around LA County artists bringing in collaborators from outside of LA. Of course, if your collaborator maybe is in town, again, going back to eligible expenses, we are not going to be paying for airfare or covering airfare. But let's say, for example, your collaborator is in San Diego, for example, that's domestic travel. So we could cover that potentially. Or if they maybe are just in Central Valley or something like that, and they need mileage covered, that's totally eligible. So that's Orange County, right? So that's different than LA County. So yeah, collaborators are different than the generative artist that is actually being invited. Their proposal is being invited. Okay. So again, another question here, and you all will get to some of these questions as well at the end, but I'm just going to try to answer some as we go so we don't get a full stack here. So you could do, the questions, you could do 5 hours per day for 7 days. So again, we try to make it work with the workspace dependent on the workspace needs. We will try to make it work, but yes, if that's what works best for you, sure, we'll definitely try to make it work. Again, everybody, we'll get into budget. The longer you extend, typically the higher the venue cost. So that's just something to keep in mind if you want to stretch that dollar. Okay. But yes, as long as it fits within a 40-hour work week, you're good. Okay, so financial transparency, and then I'll come back to the chat. Okay, so we always like to name, again, this is an LAPP practice. We always like to name where does the funding for this program come from? I think people are curious about that and maybe don't ever have access to that. So this particular program is funded through the California Arts Council statewide and regional networks program, so the SRN program. And they awarded this particular, we actually awarded our artists programming in general, so programs for artists. So that includes free advice, that includes workshops, that includes casual, $42,500. So this supports other programs outside of R&D. So R&D is our largest program, and it supports a majority of it through CAC. But we also receive staff salary support for William, who's amazing, because currently we're the administrating organization for California Arts Council's Individual Artist Fellowship. So that was a big bonus for us to be able to bring in a part-time program associate. So thank you, William, for being here, and thank you, CAC. And then new for this year, we just announced this via a newsletter. We have been awarded funds through the Mellon Foundation, which is brand new for us. We're so excited, and we just thank them so much for supporting us as an organization. And it was really about supporting our programming and sustaining our programming and right-sizing these offerings. So this is why we're able to increase our hourly rate. And I allocated for the artist programming $12,500 of that award to, again, mostly R&D, but some other modifications as well to, again, try to right size our budgets. So I just want to like to be transparent with folks here. We have our program budget here. Our entire program for R&D is $35,924. So as you can see here, the different breakdowns, we again just try to be super, super clear. This is the budget for both R&D and R&D for parents and guardians. So you can see here that more than half of the budget directly goes into artist fees and the project support funds. So this is what's going to be supporting your proposals. So that's the light blue, in case you see color. That's the light blue here and the orange on here. Those are all going directly to artist fees and directly into the project budgets. The direct admin fees, in case folks want to know what is in there, that includes the documentation. So again, we give the artist a choice between photography and videography for each project. We also advertised a little bit for this program, trying to get you all here and make sure people knew about it. And then of course, y'all, we gotta have some snacks. So with our Catalyst gathering, we have some little snacks, and that also includes snacks. And then you'll also see here LAPP staff, which is in the Navy, and that includes William, myself, and the entire staff actually reviews the proposal. So that's their time to review the proposals along with 2 other LA artists. So just want to practice financial transparency here. That's where the money's going. And then of course we have our childcare reimbursement for parents and guardians as well. So if you have any questions about that, I'll check the, I don't see anything popped up in the chat, but just want to practice that. And this is great to keep in mind because again, looking at that $10,000 number, the $10,705 number, which is 30% of our budget, that's the project budgets that we have to allocate to all the R&D projects. So again, it toggles between, it's a little bit of a puzzle, which we'll get into the review process, but that's the overall budget for all 5 projects. So it has to fit all 5 artists' needs. So I just try to be really clear about that because again, if your project needs, let's just say 20 performers to be paid at $25 an hour for 2 weeks, probably not going to fit in this budget, probably not going to fit in this scope and scale of this particular offering. Just try to be super clear about that. Okay. And I see some questions, but let me get through the timeline and then I'll toggle to questions. So the interest forms are open now, you all. Please, please, please take a look. They've been open for a couple weeks now, I think. We're having our info session today, and they are due on May 15th at 6 p.m. You also not midnight. It's usually has been midnight in the past, but we actually need the time to be able to process the forms the following day. And sometimes if we wait till midnight, it just like trickle in and it takes a long time. So 6 o'clock, you all, PST. So if you're traveling, it's PST, 6 p.m. PST, not EST, not any other time. We will notify folks June 17th, okay? Not June 17th, you all, the week of June 17th. So please, if we don't hear from us on June 17th, don't panic. It may take us that full week to get back to folks. And if for some reason we need to extend that, we will let you know. So you will hear from us either way. There will be no ghosting. There will be no disappearing. We will let you know. So the kickoff again, the kickoff catalyst, again, August 1st, 2024, at 5 o'clock. And that's a TBD location, but we usually meet downtown. And then the culmination, October 25th. The program activity window is super important, you all. So all activity for R&D has to happen between July and October 2024. So nothing can trickle into November or December. So everything has to happen between July and October 2024. So that's your project activity window, okay? So let me just stop sharing for a moment and look at this chat really quick. Okay. Okay, so there's a question. Is August and October the time frame for all project activity? No. So I just said this. So July to October is the project activity. The catalyst gatherings are specific dates. So August 1st and October 25th. Okay, great. Just want to say it out loud. All right, let's get into interest. So Joanna, I'm going to wait on that because we're going to get into interest forms right now. And if I don't answer it, let me know. And then I can go back. Okay, you all. Okay, I'm going to pull up the Airtable form so we can look at it together because I always find that's just the easiest. And if you want to look at it at your own computer, feel free. The first thing I want to say is you all, please save your work. Airtable does not save your work for you. Maybe if you have like the pro edition, I'm not sure, but it doesn't save the work for me. I just have gotten so many sad stories of folks who didn't save their work, their computer crashed, and then they can't access their proposal. I recommend start it on a Word doc or a Google Doc and then transfer it over. So then you always have the answers and it's just a quick copy paste job Just cannot stress that enough. We've had this happen so many times to folks. So please, please, please make sure to save your work. I just don't want that to happen ever again. Okay, let's drop this into the chat here. Here is the Airtable interest form. Okay, if you want to follow along, I put the link in the chat. If not, I'm going to share my screen. Boop-a-doo. It got like super hot in my room, so I'm like sweating. Sorry, y'all. You have to deal with the consequences. Okay. So this is the form. So it's a simple Airtable form. It's pretty easy to use. I highly recommend reading all this beautiful language up top here. It just gives you some setting. It's kind of repeating what I'm doing now. Why is this? Sorry, you all. This is giving another form that is old. Let me just go to I might have like my history caching. Ah, here it is. Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so again, reading all this context here, you all, good, juicy stuff. Something I didn't call out before, but I'm gonna say here now is, which is right here, only one interest form for both R&D and R&D for parents and guardians. So we have some questions which we'll look at together where you can check what you're interested in. Also, artists are only able to participate in one of the offerings. So you're not going to be eligible to do R&D and R&D for parent and guardians. We also ask artists to please only submit with one project. You could be named a collaborator in another project, that's fine. Hopefully not lead collaborator, but if you're like maybe supporting somebody in their, again, choreography, or you're a musician in somebody's theater piece, that's fine. But we ask for you to be lead artist only on one project that is submitted. And again, artists do need to reside in LA County. And we do ask for your address to check residency. Have the due date there. We'll get into the review process shortly, so I'm not going to get too into that. But the big thing that I like to highlight here is for written responses, we do not have word counts. So I personally, and this is something that we've implemented not only with LAPP programming, but we also did with the Individual Artist Fellowship. We really want you to provide maximum flexibility for artists and focus on quality of the responses and not spend your time with the periods and the commas and all that stuff. But I will say, please be concise. I'm already seeing some submissions that just are like copy and pasting a novel. That is not actually going to work in your advantage. So there is no expectation, there's no weight given to super lengthy responses. We still are asking for you to be super concise, super direct. Please do not just copy and paste like reams and reams of language. We do want you to answer the question succinctly. So be conscious that somebody's going to be reading this on the back end, and you just want to be really thoughtful about the time they're spending on it. A good rule of thumb is like 300 words, like is always a good rule of thumb. Again, we're not being prescriptive on purpose. I really trust that you all will take this as a gift, and use it accordingly. But if you need a rule of thumb, 150, 300, depending on what question you're answering. We'll go into the criteria next, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time right at this exact moment. All right, let's get into the questions. And then we also have William's email here and on our website. So William will be the point of contact going forward after tomorrow. Primary contact info. So you all, this is like the basics. We need your name. Please give us your phone number, your email. We will eventually be asking for your address, to write a contract out for R&D to check your eligibility. We would love to have your pronouns so we can refer to you respectfully through this process. And we do ask a series of demographic questions. If you looked at this right when we opened it, we actually didn't have these questions, but we actually added them in later. We actually collect these for all of our programs, and I had been a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to add them to R&D just because I try to keep these forms like super short, concise, so you all can just do it and get on with your day. but actually it is really, really important for us to continue to support this program to have answers to these questions. So I'm just saying that out loud, that if you looked at this and you're like, well, these weren't in here before, that's because we just added them last week. So we are asking for an artist statement or a biography. So we know that folks may not have like a pristine artist statement ready to go. So you could switch to a biography. A combo is also fine. Again, we don't need both. We want you to be concise. So if you have an artist statement, put that in. That's what we would prefer. This is an artistic program. If you don't panic. Put a biography. We also like to be, here's the questions for if you want to be considered for R&D for parents and guardians, you just toggle down here. Yep, I sure do. And then this is if you only want to be considered for R&D parents and guardians. So again, maybe that 1 week is just golden for you and you're just like 2 weeks, I can't do it. Then you can check this box, okay? So then we're going to get into project summary. So this is really where you get to talk about your project. So this is the exciting stuff. So this is early project support, you all. So we know that you're in the ideation phase. These are initial ideas. We're really just more interested in hearing about what are you digging at? What are you researching? Kind of like what are you trying to spend time grappling with? There's actually no public performance element for this engagement. So really invite folks to move away from, and then I want to present it to 700 people. It's like, that's not what R&D actually is for. It's for that early stages of ideation. Again, if you need like maybe a small invited audience to give you feedback at the end, that's fine. You could put that in here. But really this is about you, the project, chewing on something, getting into that next phase. It's not about working towards a public something. So title, project description, again, any collaborators you currently have associated with the project, even if you're not asking for support for them, we just want to know who's dialoguing with you about in this project and what's their role. Really important here, you all. In a few sentences, we really want to know what is driving this creative work. What's your thesis? What's your question? What's your guiding principles? You know, what's chewing at you that's really stirring you to do this project? So that's where this is. And this is something that the reviewers really dive into because we kind of want to see what you're thinking and how is this relevant? What are you addressing? Then the project timeline, again, this is the overall timeline. So this is like, I've had a reading, let's just say it's a play. I had a reading last year in October. Then I want to do this R&D 2024. And then in January, I'm going to be producing it. I don't know. I'm just making up a timeline, but this is the overall project timeline. Like, what have you done in its development? And it could be nothing, but we just want to see how have you, and maybe it's like an informal, like maybe you've done some informal research or informal showings, and that's fine too. It doesn't necessarily have to be always public showings, but we just want to see kind of where it's standing in its development process. So that's about your project. Then we're going to get into the support request. Okay, so this is the details of what you need from this R&D experience. So again, please, airfare is not an eligible expense. I'm just going to keep saying that because we got quite a bit of airfare requests last year. But we can support local, such as trains, mileage, local communities. So specific support needs. So I'm going to get into another document in just a moment. But this is where you really share, what do you need? What do you need? And any budget that goes along with that. So again, we don't want this to be like, twist yourself in a pretzel. Let me make this amazing Excel spreadsheet that's just like bam, 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 and all this amazing. It's like, keep it simple, you all. Again, think of the reviewer. How is the reviewer going to access this to really just be like, okay, great. They're maybe reading 50 of these. So we want to keep this really simple, really to the point. Please don't spend time creating like elaborate spreadsheets. It's not needed. And all this is, again, going back to our financial transparency, we're trying to match resources. So remember that number, 10,785, I think I'm getting it correct. That's our total budget for R&D. So what we have to do as staff and as artist reviewers is play matchmaker. Okay, this person wants $500. Okay, great. This person wants, okay, how much, so it's all that kind of puzzling. And again, we don't necessarily evenly split the pot because it's really based on the needs. And so I can't say for sure it's going to be you have a $2,000 budget. But again, if you split $10,000, $785 by 5 projects, it's about $2,000 a project. But we may not be allocating that exactly to the dollar because people have different needs. And I have to say, it's happened many times. Nadine, did you want to come on mic? No? Okay.
No, sorry.
Okay, no problem. And then your ideal support timeline. So this goes back to that project activity window. So July to October 2024, anytime within there, what's your ideal support window? So I want to do 2 weeks straight, ideally in September. The beginning of September is better for me. Great. I want to do a week. Let's say I only want to do parents and guardians. I want to do a week, but I can't do a full week. I can really only do 3 days and then take 2 days off. And I want to do another, whatever your ideal support timeline is, please put it in here. And we really do try to match it. So please let us know. If you need space, if you need physical space, please let us know what that is. So maybe it is work from home. Great. That actually frees us up then to give you maybe more support to other things. Maybe you do need a dance studio. Maybe you need a theater space. We had people that were very specific that said they needed like access to a lighting grid, right? That really helps us know what you're talking about and what we can get for you. If you have a specific location, like I have to be at Stomping Ground, I have no idea, then please put that too, because that's also really helpful for us because we can check availability, see if that's even viable, etc. Or you can be like, I'm totally open, let's talk about it, which I think a lot of folks are pretty open. We have a lot of partnerships in the community. And so sometimes we need to activate those to get you the best deal, or again, to truncate the rates. So let us do that work. But if you have specific needs, like it needs to have a dance floor, or it needs to have certain lighting, or you need to be able to project during the day, like we need to know that because then we can start sourcing out those venues. Okay, so in just a moment, I'm going to look at specific support needs, some samples that I put together, because this is like the #1 question we get is like, I don't know what to put in support needs. It's so open-ended. So we'll look at some, I tried to be a little tongue-in-cheek with them, but we'll look at that next. So support materials, these are your work samples, you all. So the folks reviewing the proposals may not know you. They may not know your work. So this is your chance to really let them into your work. Also, be in conversation. This is what I tell people all the time. Your work samples should be in support. That's why we call them support materials of the proposal. So say, for example, you're submitting a dance project and you're saying, I want to do a dance. Your bio says you're a dancer, and then all your support materials are film. That's it. It just does not have a conversation with the narrative that you're putting into the request. So your support materials should really be evidence of the proposal. So that's why I always tell people, make that connection. So you can submit 3 work samples. It could be in a variety of different forms: video, images, text. No more than 5 minutes of video or audio total, you all. Again, we're talking about 50 to 60 proposals that we typically get. We cannot have 15 minutes of work sample. So it's 5 minutes. You can do like 1 minute one sample. You can do 2 minutes the other. That's fine. You could stitch it all together into a 5-minute sample. That's fine. We've seen variety of different things. If it's like a script, so 10 pages of script does not include your title page, you all. We're not that, that's just silly. So your title page is not included. Images, same thing. You can have 10 images there, 10 pages of images. If you don't have a URL, you can actually attach it here into the program. So it's really great. So everything can just be right here through a URL if it's like a Vimeo, or you can attach it here. I cannot stress this enough, you all. The detail section is your time to shine, okay? Let us know what we're watching. We have no context of this work sample, okay? So you have to say, what are we watching? Again, there's no word count, but again, be concise to your point. You're not, oh, this is the summary of this and this one. And no, it's like, this is a dance piece that I choreographed in 2018, and it shows how I work in collaboration with other dancers, whatever it is, whatever your proposal is. Also, if we need passwords to see the work, please put them here. If we need context, right? Like maybe it was a big festival and you're like, oh, actually the work really should have projections, but this was outside. Like give us some context to what we're watching and what the actual event was, or the thing that we're watching. If you don't want to edit video, for example, you could put timestamps here. So again, this is a 20-minute video. We know I can only show 5 minutes. So please watch from this time to this time. That's also a great place to put that in the description or the detail section. Okay, so same things. I got a lot of questions about this last year, you all. I always recommend, and this is just my rule of thumb, you can do you. And if you applied for the fellowship, you probably heard me say this a bazillion times. If you're going to do video clips, I highly recommend them be at least a minute. When people submit what I call a trailer, it doesn't give the panelist a lot of time to sit with the project or sit with the sample. It kind of just like, if you're like image, voiceover, it's like, what do you want me to get from this? And I know folks are like, but mom, my work's great and I just want them to see everything. And so I'm going to put together this 5-minute hot trailer with all these hot takes. And it's like, whoa, but I'm not really getting to experience your work. So I always recommend folks 1 minute minimum on the clips, okay? Because it's really hard. And this is also panelist feedback that I've gotten as somebody who's run this program for many years, that it's hard to get into a proposal if we can't really see the work. So think about that. Again, we're not gonna like boot it out if it's a trailer or if it's cut up. I just really want people to encourage to take the time they need with the samples. And again, how is the samples is case making and evidence for what I shared in the proposal. Okay, let me see. I know we have some questions. I just want to share one more thing before I get into questions. We made this, I made this sample support needs. I'm gonna share my screen again here. So sample, and this is on our website, you all, as well. So if you want to access it at any time, you can just go on our website. And I did this not to be prescriptive. So please don't be like, oh, mine doesn't fit within these sample. No, this is just because people were like, I just need some idea of what I can submit with. So I just made these almost just for fun, for fun. Hopefully make you laugh a little bit. Just to give you an idea of how it could look in that specific sample support needs section. So again, sample 1, I'm just going to read like a couple of these. Sample 1, I'm a solo creator. I'm an artist. I'm a solo creator. I want 2 weeks in an actual workspace space alone by myself. And I have some research things. So again, oh, actually, yeah, 2 weeks alone. So they just want to work from home. I'm sorry. So they need some fancy books. Great. They need a fancy library subscription. Great. I don't want to pay for parking at that said fancy library. Great. Put that in there. And then I also need to do some research on ancestry.com. Great. Here's my total. Okay. So you all, this is the type of thing that you can ask for. Again, these are low requests. So again, think about the budget. They could be, actually sample 3 is a little bit higher. So you can see here, this is a $1,600 request versus like a $200 request, because the stipend is yours already. Okay. So you don't have to put that in the budget, because the fee that we're giving you is already accounted for in the budget. This is additional support that you need to make your R&D experience useful to you. So you can see here, maybe I need a collaborator. again, we do not endorse not paying artists here at LAPP. So if you're going to have collaborators, we ask for a minimum of $20 an hour compensation for their time. So keep that in mind. So this person says, okay, I could work with them maybe for 3 days out of my R&D, because I also have some other things I want to do with my R&D funds. And maybe they need a space, etc. Okay. So this is just additional support needs. Yes, I think I see a question. Let me just, before I go to the question, I just want to go through the questions in the chat real quick, and then I'm going to move on to review process. So just give me one sec. So the catalyst question, am I correct in understanding that the question is not a space to give a small history lesson on inspiration, just a few sentences for the and save the details for the project proposal? Yeah, so we have a couple places you could put history of that particular project. You could put it in the timeline, right? Like, this is all the things I've done with this project. This is when I originally had the idea. This is some conversations I had. This is some research I've done. The catalyst is really like, what drove you to this project in the first place? Like, I was curious about, you know, or maybe it's more topical. I mean, it's like, going into the presidential election, I want to make this piece in response to that. Or, you know, maybe it's a personal experience. I just lost my grandmother, and this piece is really about grief and my conversation with grief, as an example. Yeah, so that's really, and then the project description, I think, could be a lot more like, what is it? Is it a dance piece? Is it a theater piece? Is it a multidisciplinary piece? How does it function? What is it exploring? You know, the little sound bite. I call it marketing blurb, but it should be a little bit deeper than that. So that's that. So also with the support needs, sorry to bounce back and forth. I see another question. And I put this in the support needs document. You don't have to guesstimate the venue, but we do need to know you need it. So, and that's where we get that space question in. That's its own question, like, do you need space? Because we are often, again, able to kind of finagle some deals for you all. So you don't need to like be like, I think it's like $1,000. I don't know, you know, because we know that on the back end. Like, if you're asking, let's just say, let's take sample one again, this artist that's a solo creator, want to work in a space for 2 weeks. So they kept their other additional support needs a little bit lighter, because a space could be close to $1,500. So we know that when we're kind of finagling the budget, and okay, this person needs like a space, so that's gonna be about 15, whatever, 1,000, 1,500. And then they have this $200 additional support. So that's kind of how we do it. Again, if you have a specific venue that you're like, I have to work out of this venue, and you know how much they charge, that would be so helpful for you to put that. But if you don't, and you can just list the venue, and that's fine. And we can do our own research. So with budget, can you request what you need, even if it's high, and LAPP can give what you need? I do not recommend that. We are matching resources. So the panel, and we'll get into this with the review process, if they, again, see, I keep using this theater play because it's just the easiest example, but if we see a play with 20 people and they want them all there every day, all day for 2 weeks, plus they want a director, plus they want a theater space, plus they want a lighting designer, there is no way that project is going to get greenlit by the panel, because they know we're matchmaking needs with what we have resource wise. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I definitely would focus in on your proposal to what is scope and scale appropriate for this particular offering. And this is like the number one thing that we see, folks, and the feedback I give year after year is like, this proposal is amazing. This project sounds awesome. It just was out of our scope. It was just out of our scope and scale. So it had really sometimes nothing to do with like artistic feedback, as much as it was like, we can't support what you need. That's as simple as that. Does the support window mean specific time with LAPP staff or physical space needs? So the support window is really your time to develop the work. So not necessarily LAPP staff time, because we're going to have time with you in the Catalyst group. We're also going to have specific set meetings with artists. So that doesn't have to happen within your R&D support window. This is more like, I need to be in my dance studio. I need to be working with my collaborator. I need to, and then we will work around that. If it's helpful for LLPP staff to be present during that window, of course, then yeah, you should put that in there. But I don't think so. I typically have always kind of done like left folks, checked in with them, checked back in, and then like come in, before the activity, during the activity, and then after the activity. That's kind of when LAPP checks in. So you don't have to coordinate with us. The specific support window is really about you and the project. Another question, I publish for books, documenting performance exhibitions. I can submit PDFs of these books, but I would love to share the physical books that have tactile impact. Is this a sort of physical material permitted as submissions? Unfortunately, Derek, no, we are not at a capacity where we can actually take physical submissions and then get them to folks, especially because we don't want to be liable for those things if they ever get misplaced or damaged or missing. And all of our panelists are going to be reviewing digitally. So unfortunately not for this process, but something to think about for the future. Thank you for that. It's a great question. Another question that was directed to me, I'm just going to read out loud for everybody. If we applied and were not invited last year, are we able to apply with the same project? Of course. And we actually have seen many times people resubmit and are successful because they actually like took the feedback, listened, made adjustments, and then were able to resubmit. Okay, great. I think is it Chi or Chai? Do you want to come on?
Chi.
Chi.
It's Chi.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's me. So can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Okay, good. So thank you for all of this. My question is, I have like 2 or 3 projects in mind, but you kind of hinted at stage of development, and I want to get into that just a little bit.
Sure.
So like there's a project that has been in the works for 20 years, but finally is at a stage where I could do some research. That's 20 years though. It's not 20 years of work, but it's like over time, it's kind of been working itself out. Are those kinds of projects eligible? Or and then the second part to that is, as a visual artist, can it be something in that sort of space, or does it have to be more like text, dance, performance, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, two answers. So the first one, I always like to say, if you feel like you're still in that kind of ideation, research, exploration phase, that could be forever. You know what I mean? So it's
okay.
not like, oh, this part. I think the panelists would just like to know why you're in that timeline. Like I think if
Got
there
it.
are
Okay.
questions around like,
Right.
why has this taken 20 years? I think they just need to know some context.
Got it. Yeah.
Or if your samples are really old, they'll probably have questions around that. So again, that's where that detail section is helpful.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So we've been so blessed to have like interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary interaction, but we are a performance company. And so I just want to say for this opportunity, this is for performance makers. So we are really looking for projects that have a performative element.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. And then just answering Joe, put a comment in the chat. Yeah. So there are a lot of grant applications, you all, that are like anticipating like, what's your full project budget? And then we'll just fund like this little sliver of it. This is not a grant application. This is again, a resource matching interest form. So we really are trying to say, what do you need? What do you need? We've been transparent with you about what we have. What do you need? And so I try to get the budget and the needs really specific. Of course, if we can't meet everything, but we're really interested in the project and it's just there, we may contact you and have a conversation about maybe shaving off 1 or 2 things. So it doesn't have to be, again, perfect, pristine, but we just want you to be cognizant going in. This is the resources we have. This is the scope and scale of a typical R&D projects. Okay. Let me go back into our slides. 1 sec, you all. Let me just grab, my dog is crying. Okay. So we're now going to go into the review process. I hope that was helpful to look at the interest form together. Okay, so criteria. And I think everybody's answered their, if I haven't answered your question, go ahead and put it in the chat. And we're going to get to like open questions as well, or you could always raise your hand. Are you seeing this, William? I'm just checking. Can you see? Okay, you can see my slides.
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, then that's not helpful. Okay. Oh, okay. Is it Chiadi?
Yeah, hi, sorry, I'm also Chi.
Oh, you're also Chi. Okay, welcome. That's what the confusion was.
Yeah, no worries. First of all, thank you. This was really helpful and really clear. I just wanted to ask really quickly, and I don't want to like go to a specific, obviously, because there's like a whole form for like specifics, but I was just curious. So like, for instance, let's say like you are like, I'm a college student and I would want to work with college students. So like maybe obviously over the summer people go home, but like for instance, you could maybe put like in addition to like wanting 2 weeks with LAPB artists for like an intensive, and then you could also maybe request like, oh, we want like to have like housing for those 2 weeks so we could all like live together while would that be something that you could also include in like a grant application if you were to like want to bring in people to have that like space and work with artists for like the 2 week period? Does that make sense? I don't know if I like said that really
Yeah, so I
clearly.
think I'm understanding. So in terms of eligible expense, like is housing an eligible expense? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, essentially, like especially if people are coming, like staying over the summer for like to specifically be part of a project that you got funded by LAPP, would you be able to like then be like, okay, we also are gonna rent this little place for the 2 week period right next to the studio you guys got for us or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, yes. My only caveat is just hearing this like again, and I don't want to like naysay because you could maybe have a great deal or something. But if you need a venue for 2 weeks and you need a housing, that seems a little out of scope already. I'm already starting to think about dollar signs. Typically, again, a venue for a 2 week window, like if you just look at like, say, for example, Stomping Ground LA, which is a pretty cheap rental house here in LA, is typically around $35 to $40 an hour. So you can already start doing the math, right? Around like if I need a space for the full 2 weeks, and then an Airbnb rental for 2 weeks could be close to $1,500, $1,900. That's a little bit out of our scope. So again, total for the R&D project is $10,785 for 5 projects. So I just want to keep saying that, not to discourage, but just to be realistic that we're trying to match folks with resources that we have available. But yes, if housing, if you just need the housing, that could be work, right? Or if you just need maybe housing and some research materials, that could work. So just try to do the math a little bit. Again, typically try to find the best deal for you for venues, but just knowing what's out there and knowing what the request is and knowing what our budget is helpful to kind of scale for scope and scale.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Question in the chat: if you're applying for the R&D for parents and guardians, and your project would look like a 1 week plan, however, you also want to submit a regular R&D proposal for 2 weeks, should I include 2 different versions? That's a great question, Cassia. I would say submit the 2 week version because maybe William, you can support me in writing a note that we should maybe add language about this on our website. But I definitely think you should include the 2 week one. Just do that because I think we can always picture it scaled down and have a conversation with you about that. So that's what I would say. Thank you for that, because that's a great point. The whole idea is that we don't want you all to do more work. That we can deduce what your needs are and try to scale it up or down if it's 1 week or 2 weeks, but we should be explicit about that. So thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to the review process. So the criteria, and again, this is criteria that we are going to be working with the panel on. And we always adjudicate with at least a minimum of 2 local artists and then our staff as well. So again, the project can be at any stage, like we just talked about with Chisara, it could be any stage of development, but we have found that this program's resources really are scaled towards experimentation, research, ideation, like we just talked about, versus like full production, like a pre-production, that type of thing. Again, there's no public performance expectation for this support. However, if there is like a small showing that would be helpful, please say that, because we just need to, again, calibrate the resources for that. So in review, panelists will consider, how is this project aligned with LAPP's mission and aesthetic interests? So again, generative performance-based work and practices. So our mission is on our website. I just went over the mission earlier today. So is there alignment in the mission? The potential for the project, again, to be in conversation and be in thoughtful creative practice. Maybe it's an active dialogue that's already happening right now in the community. So this is kind of a relevancy check, and that can be that catalyst question. You know, what is this project doing? What is it trying to accomplish? So that's kind of what we're asking here. Again, that alignment question around resources and LAPP, the project's needs and LAPP resources. You all, we try to be just super transparent about that. There's no cloak and dagger about it. We're trying to be really clear, like, this is what we have. There's no other money. We're not hiding any money behind the rock here, you all. This is what we have. And then any potential development for the future. We want to make sure that this is a stepping stone for you, that this is like going to be helpful for you, because maybe you have a work in progress showing next year, or maybe you have an informal showing scheduled and you need this time to get ready for that. Or maybe you have another grant opportunity that you're like, I need to get some thinking around this because I'm going to be going for this other big grant or something like that. So just kind of timing in the development. And that's why we ask you for where this project is in the course of the development. And then, of course, in compliance with our public, cultural, equity, inclusion policy, we prioritize work by women identified, non-binary, and Black, Indigenous, people of color artists. But of course, all artists are welcome to submit. We also have a review rubric. And again, this will be shared, these slides will be shared with you all in case you want to take a look at this a little bit more closely, but really the panel is the one that's going to be looking at this the closest. So are you eligible? Do you reside in LA County? What is the proposed project? Again, is it an aesthetic match? Are you being thoughtful about the practice? Is it a compelling inquiry? Again, that goes back to that catalyst question. Like, what are you grappling with? What was the impetus for this project? How would the work be in dialogue or contribute to, again, what's happening right now in the arts community? Would it kind of spur some excitement? Could we see it, really speaking to something that's in the zeitgeist? And then again, where is it in the timeline? Okay, so these are all big questions about the project. Then we get into resource matching, looking at the collaborative team, looking at the development timeline. Can we really help this project with the scale of resources we have versus what you need in terms of your next steps? Also sharing your practice. So do your samples show multidisciplinary practice, performance practice? Does your past work suggest creativity, maybe some risk-taking, some innovation? Again, going back to our mission, we're really about servicing exciting, innovative work. How are you defining that? Again, a great place for that work sample detail section to say, well, this is really showing innovation in form, or this is really showcasing innovation in content. Maybe it's a theme or a topic that people just don't talk about publicly in performance. So that's another thing to think about. Does the work, approach the audience with care? A lot of times folks want to have dialogue about maybe trauma or maybe violence. How are you thinking about an audience member leaving that piece? What's your goal there? What are some support mechanisms you have in place for that audience? And again, that could be either in the project description, That could be in the work samples. But addressing that to me is also something that panelists really are looking for. Again, William's email is up here. We will be sharing this slide deck and also the video, but I just want to look at the chat and have room for questions if folks want to come on mic. Yeah, so Daria asked, am I correct that using an old work sample is okay if you justify it in the notes? Yeah, I mean, a rule of thumb for work samples is like the last 5 years is kind of the rule of thumb. But we get it. The pandemic happened. A lot of people were like, I'm not going out. I'm not making work. Actually, we were like really just seeing new work getting made like in the last year. So I think just put some context to it, you know, why is this important for this particular proposal, I would say, is even the further context we need, because it could be maybe an older work, but really demonstrates, you know, what you're trying to showcase, and that's fine. But I would address it. I wouldn't just like put it there and maybe not address it, because then I think that causes confusion to folks. So yeah, other questions? Now we're kind of in open time. Yeah, Robert.
A good evening. Thank you for this presentation. I got a question regarding the criteria, just to like try to make sure that it's super clear. Regarding the point saying the project's potential for ongoing development through the 2024-2025 year. Let's say that I've already been, well, not let's say, I'm gonna be transparent. I've been given this residency in downtown LA. It's given me this space to like use for from now till December. But like, what if I'm wanting to like use the resources of R&D to help me during like 2 weeks during like this time? From now till December, can I still like sign up for it, basically?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Yeah, absolutely. I think just be really transparent about that in the development timeline question. So you would say in the overall project development timeline, you would say, I've been given XYZ residency, so I have a space from this time to this time, and I really want to use this opportunity to, let's just say, pay for collaborators. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Or I just want to pay myself with the fee or whatever it is. And then in the space support, you would say my space needs are covered by this residency, so I would not need space support. And then the specific support needs, you would list what those are. So if it's just the fee, great. If it's, you know, maybe you just also want a collaborator to join you for a week, great. So then that way we know that we're not talking about a venue need or space need. They're talking about a different need.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, just be transparent that you have this opportunity until this date to this date as part of your project's overall timeline. Yeah. Great. Other questions? Other specifics? Okay, well, if that's, if everybody feels like their needs are met, we're gonna go ahead and close today's session. Again, we will share the video. Again, to answer Cassia's question, which was so good, if you wanna apply for both R&D and R&D for parents and guardians, use the 2-week timeline. Yes, we will get that up on the website. Great question. We will send out the video, we'll send out the slides. If you have any other questions, it will be william@performancepractice.org. Oh, I see one more question. Casey, do you want to come on mic? Or put it in the chat, either way.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, how are you? How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for this wonderful panel. So I pretty much have heard everything, but I'm an artist and I am interested in applying. I kind of did sign on late, but I'm an artist and I am still in the developing stages, emerging with my talents. and I have performed to other prior grants that you've had, but for this one in particular, it wasn't just the resources because I definitely want to connect to amazing people and build relationships. But I was just wondering, is this the right thing for me? Like, does this fit what I'm trying to do? Because as an emerging artist, of course, I want to do more shows and be able to use these resources to help build and expand my career.
Mhm. Yeah, Casey, thanks so much for being here and thanks for trying, aiming to participate in our programs. Appreciate you. I would say this is really for a specific project. So if you
Okay.
don't have a specific project in mind, I would say the proposal will be less competitive than if you did, because we really want to make sure that there's an alignment with how is this how are these resources supporting that specific project and its realization and its timeline. We have other programs that are a little bit more for building community. So I would say like the free advice series, especially the free advice online, which is a group session where you get to meet with other LA artists. We also have workshops. We actually have one coming up this Saturday. It's called Movement Storytelling at Stomping Ground. I highly recommend checking out our workshop series. That's another great way to connect with LA community artists and build your practice. We also have, not being offered this year, but we have in the past offered Accelerator, which is like a cohort model of LA artists that are looking to build up their community and their networks and also their
Okay.
funding opportunities. So this one specifically, I think, is really about early project support for a specific project.
Early projects. Okay, I have some projects coming up.
Okay,
So,
great.
and what's the timeline again? Like, when do you let everyone know?
Yeah, so to review the timeline again, the proposals are due on May 15th. So you have to submit an interest form before then, and then we
Okay.
will let folks know by the week of June 17th. So that whole week we may need some time to just, make sure everybody's in, all their notes from the panelists are in, and then we'll let folks know that week.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. All right. Anybody else? Any other time? Any other questions? Any other needs? And again, of course, William put his email in the chat, so you can always ask William anything you need. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you who are watching this recording. We hope that you submit your proposal. Please, no stress. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. Please be direct, concise, and we're looking forward to reading more about your work. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.